So I am really impressed with the beginning of the program, that is where Goddess Saraswati was invoked, and I think Goddess will bless all of us. And today Ishan is going to present. That's a very interesting topic, and Ishan, that is the another name of Shiva. So let us listen to the stones speak. So it's a very, very interesting topic, and I think Ishan will be doing justice to this topic. And I hope, he is also the founder. I think he is the founder of Karma. So his karma of this study of heritage, Indian heritage, Indian art, particularly in the form of monuments, that is statues, relics, structures, that has begun. And I think when we talk of this kind of topic, because I think once Ishan will make presentation, then I'll be talking about that. But one thing that this presentation makes me to do one observation, that is what is human beings' first interaction, and that interaction was with stone. So naturally, there lies the importance of this presentation, this topic. It is not just the interaction with the stone, but ultimately resulted into a kind of paradigm that's a stony face. So I'll be talking about all those things later on, but I want to, and everybody wants to listen to Ishan. So Ishan, you should begin your presentation. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Eshan, over to you.
Thank you so much, Shamriddhi and Professor Verma good evening, everyone. I would like to thank my friends at Saksha, the History Society of Shyam Lal College evening, for inviting me to this conversation. And I'm always comfortable being the one moderating the session. But thank you so much for making me sit on the other side for the first time and for a change. I promise, like Henry VIII, who was popularized by Dr. Shashi Tharoor in India, that I shall not keep you long. Considering the time limit, I do not have the permission to keep you long. And I'll try to make some vague comments without having the time to elaborate on them, but I look forward to the queries uh, from all of you. And let me just share my PowerPoint presentation and just confirm, somebody can confirm me once they see uh, the PPT.
Yes, Mr. Eshan, it's visible. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm calling this lecture as "Let's Listen to the Stone Speak." Uh, to to many people's disappointment, I do not just limit the understanding of stones as physical entities, but I use stones as a metaphor for history. And the reason for this lecture, "Let's Listen to the Stone Speak," is the need to go out and explore. History can never be understood if you wish to understand it in a closed environment like your classrooms. And this lecture, this conversation is an attempt to unpack those questions, that often occupy a history student's mind. I don't know about others, but they really occupy my mind most of the time. So it might be ranting and blabbering at some point, but please bear with me. Uh, like Chandran, who was the hero of R.K. Narayan's very popular novel, The Bachelor of Art, I too tried my luck looking for a book full of historical humors, but while I was preparing for the talk, but I failed miserably in that sense. So, in recent times, we have seen comments like India gained independence in 2014 and not 47th, and that reminds me, I'm the 47th speaker of this conversation. That makes it all the more interesting. And there were comments like um Gandhi did not do well, for his contribution was limited in the freedom struggle. And that makes me wonder the importance of history and heritage in this nation. I must begin by defining what is history, but a question which is so vast and so important, and um, for which a lot has written. Philosophers like E.H. Carr, Eric Hobsbawm, R.G. Collingwood, they have given their whole life researching and commenting about what is history. So it really cannot be summarized in just a minute or two. सिर्फ एक या 2 मिनट में हम उसकी व्याख्या उसको summarize नहीं कर सकते. But one can debate endlessly on this theme, which I won't. So history, just for the comfort of our listeners, I would say history is a continuous dialogue of the past with the present and future of time, where time also acts as a metaphor of memory. And as Collingwood remarked, the past which an historian studies is not a dead past, but a past which in some sense is still living in the present. And in contemporary times, we not only reconstruct the past, but we also use it to give legitimacy to the way in which we order our society, and that's very well documented, and we see it in our own daily lives, that how history is being used or abused in the present context. Then, who is a history student? We like to call ourselves history students because we are studying bachelors of arts in history. But one can mug up facts of the past without wanting to know why they happened and what they might train you, like something, what they might train you in a civil services coaching. But then he or she who mugs up facts, who mugs up the dates, can be called as calendars or planners, but not history students, because the study of history itself is the study of causes. And a good history student will always ask or begin his query by asking the question why. Why something happened and in what context did it take place. And that is how you term a history student. And then, what is the function and who is a historian? So the function of the historian, according to E.H. Carr, is, he neither love the past nor emancipate himself from the past, but he tries to master it and understand it as a key to the understanding of the present. And it is a strange paradox indeed that a person who is professionally concerned with quote unquote the past has a crucial role to play in the future of the society which he is studying. And the image of the past that he creates or she creates is a historian's contribution to the future. And that is why the role of historian becomes an important part while we talk of contemporary society. In the age of WhatsApp in which we are living currently, everyone has become a historian, and it really amazes me that how conveniently people become historian and doctors in their own rights. And some have started prescribing medicines also on WhatsApp, called this the Desi Nuskhe, and they've started writing the quote unquote historical wrongs in their own senses. Although the professors of WhatsApp University will preach what's wrong in the history or what's wrong in the way history has been written, but they won't allow their children to pursue history as a career. We live, unfortunately, we live in a society where science, engineering, and medicine dominates social sciences, and you know, uh, it is really saddening the state of social sciences in this nation. The research index of humanities is going down, uh, and it is something that we all must think about. Like some of you, I joined history because I could not get into political science when I was planning to get into Delhi University. The cutoff of Delhi University at that time, I remember, for political science was about 92%. And for history in Dayal Singh College, it was 89%. So I got 89 in my 12th standard. So I had no choice but to join history. And like most of you, my wish was also to get into the civil services when I joined history. Because there's a very popular misconception that studying history will make you clear the civil services exam. But once I started exploring and reading thinkers like Eric Hobsbawm, E.H. Carr, and Romila Thapar, it was then that I started understanding the depth of history and how contemporary this discipline is. The constant debates on the legacy of Aurangzeb or the legacy of Nehru, or when did India get independence? Was it a true independence, or was it uh, a mercy from the British side? Such comments, discourses make history all the more contemporary. And I think we have to thank the politicians who have kept this discipline alive, in some sense, that they have kept the Mughal emperors alive in public memory more than the historians could. So I'll talk about my interest later in the next part. So what has happened in the past few years is, friends, that we have isolated heritage from our discourse on history. I mean, you get to read about heritage sites, monuments in your books and textbooks as episodes, or in bits and pieces. When you read about the architecture, say the quote unquote the Hindu architecture, or quote unquote the term that I do not really like, the Islamic architecture. Um, or if you read about tourism, because there's a GE paper called Tourism, where you talk about the heritage. There's also a paper on heritage, a GE paper on heritage, where they talk about heritage. So what they've done is we have bifurcated these things, but we fail to understand the history and heritage is the part of the same tale. It is the same tale that you cannot really separate from each other. And this brings me to the question uh, of public perception of history and heritage. I've talked about how we have separated it, but how does public perceive history and heritage? And I'll talk about the heritage sites, uh, mostly because I do not really have time to get into uh, history part. We can have another conversation on it. In present time, we often hear people claiming Taj Mahal as a temple and dividing, and there's a certain section in the society that tries to divide heritage sites among religious lines. And for somebody, a particular religious site might not be a monument, but but the other site might be a monument. So this kind of bifurcation remains, and we see that very often in our daily life. Now, talking about perception of monuments, or how monuments are perceived, how they are looked up or looked down upon, if we can call that, in their afterlife, is the next screen that I'll show you. The images that you see on your screen, these are not very rare images. If you visit a monument today, there are scratched wall claiming the love episodes of Raj and Simran. There are ruined ceilings. There's old furniture lying around. This is the tomb of Saadat Ali Khan in Lucknow. Saadat Ali Khan, as we all know, was the son of Nawab Shuja-ud-Daula and was the fifth Nawab of Lucknow, Awadh. This structure laments for conservation, like thousands other monuments in different parts of our nation. We recently also saw in 2019 the collapse at the temple structure of Hampi due to heavy rains, and the scapegoat for this became the rain. And the ASI, the Archaeological Survey of India, has put up boards at every heritage site and even charged fees from visitors at various sites. But the question arises, after seeing such news that are they doing enough, and what role does the public play in conserving these heritage sites. We also recently saw the usage of Portland cement to repair the domes of Jama Masjid of Delhi by the Shahi Imam. As I have gathered, the ASI have no role in the conservation of Jama Masjid, but there's not much lament for the kind of restoration that is going on in Jama Masjid, because as we know, Portland's usage of Portland cement in 100 to 100-old buildings always decrease the age of a monument, in the sense it dries out the water from the structure, so it makes it more drier. तो जब एक दीवार बहुत सूख जाती है, so it becomes weak. Once it becomes weak, it it leads to the danger of crumbling down or in shambles. So that is why Portland cement is not advisable in heritage sites. These monuments are standing for at least 200 years, even more than that, and the conservation really needs public protection in that sense, and that is why the perception of monuments should be changed among the people. I will quickly show you another example of public memory of heritage sites. This is the picture that you are seeing on your screen right now is supposed to be the tomb of the single most important personality of the Awadh politics, who played a very important role from 1793 to 1837, Nawab Mirza Mehendi Ali Khan. And a very big part of his tomb complex is now lost, and rest has been occupied by the people who used to live around the tomb. These are just a few examples to show how heritage sites uh, are existing in their afterlife. And why I call afterlife, because they were made in a certain century, but now in the contemporary time they become part of the public. So once they become part of the public, their afterlife starts. And another example, if I can give, because when you talk of heritage, so many examples come to your mind actually, and two more examples if I can cite. One being the recent beautification of Mahabat Maqbara at Junagadh, which is recently beautified. And I'm not really sure what is this weird fascination with beautifications of heritage sites. You must restore, you must renovate, but you do not beautify sites. Not like this that you can see. It's deeply saddening to see a structure being beautified in this sense. Another example that comes to mind and was under fire a lot, the recent Jallianwala Bagh, beautification, a site that shows the struggle of the Indian masses to gain freedom, is made into a fancy wonderland. I'm not really sure what to call it. I'm not really sure what to say about them. And they plan to do more beautification in the coming time. In other countries where they have way less diversity in terms of the monuments and the history, they take pride in what they inherited from the primary import, and they jealously protect and nurture those heritage sites. I'm talking about countries like France, London, New York, and other various cities and countries of the world. We are destroying our own heritage without properly understanding it, and by taking suggestions from those who do not have a sense of history, that is, our very seasoned politicians. We need to train many more young people to take initiative of making heritage ambassadors who can lead heritage walks, who can spread awareness, because more awareness is the only possible solution to fight ignorance. Talking about heritage and how stones spoke to me, my fascination for history started when I was a student at Dayal Singh College that I mentioned earlier. And I used to spend my time outside the classroom more than inside it and studying. So I used to travel around the Lodhi garden and the Khan market, the Safdarjung tomb, the Humayun's tomb, and Nizamuddin Dargah, and also the Sundar nursery. So I was really fortunate to have such neighborhood where I studied for 3 years, alas, 2.5 year, and maybe 1.5 year actually, and then this pandemic came and things went topsy turvy in that sense, and uh, so that is how I started understanding. I was a general visitor when I first visited Lodhi Garden. I saw, okay, this is a old building where photography, wedding photographies are going on. You know, the bride and groom are um, posing, and the photographer roams around the tomb and just to click pictures. And that is how you perceive the monuments today. They are just places for, unfortunately, they are places of wedding photography, photo shoots. But once I started reading, as I said, I came to know about the importance of these sites. These are the testaments to the time that went by. And unfortunately, because of the ignorance of of our people, of our ignorance, these heritage sites are under threat because there's a lack of government uh, responsibility, or governments looking after. There's a very big part of it. The present situation of heritage is our ignorance. We cannot just simply blame the authorities and uh, have a gala time. It is also our um mistake, or so when I was in due, like most of you, we didn't have the luxury of heritage walks at that time. We used to go to picnics to heritage sites. I'm not sure how do you picnic at a heritage site, but at a graduate level. But they took us to a picnic at Red Fort when I was in my first year, and after that, we didn't go to anywhere. But that is when a thought came to my mind that we must collect the students. We must take uh, 250 rupees each, so that we'll cover the entry fee of those monuments in Delhi. And what we'll do is we'll form a group. Somebody will read this, somebody will read that, and then we'll lead a heritage walk of our own. And this was all happening while we were sitting and waiting for a metro at the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium metro station with my friend. And he said, "Chalo karte hain. Let's go to Orcha." We planned for a heritage walk to Orcha. That is how it started. But nobody signed up. तो हमने कहा यार अभी तो we do not have enough पैसा to invest, and let's let's postpone the plan. What we'll do is we'll go to the Kalam Memorial, which is at Delhi Heart, INA Delhi Heart. So I thought let's do this. तो हमने 50 रुपए उसकी फीस रखी, और हमने कहा कि चलो जितने लोग आना चाहो, we'll tell you the story of Abdul Kalam, the greatest, one of the best prime presidents we ever had, and we'll do this. And I was the walk leader for that. But for the first time, when we did that walk, nobody turned up. It was a zero attendance classroom, and we thought it's a big failure. But that is when I uh, met more friends, and they said, don't worry, we'll do again, and let's set up a group. And that is when we came up with Caravan, the Heritage Exploration Initiative. And that is how our journey started. So I met Sohail Hashmi Sahab, who is one of the most known figures of history, Delhi's heritage and heritage conservation. He agreed to lead a walk for Caravan, and that is how the journey really started. And it's still going, and we encourage students to come with us to heritage walks. And so that is when we started this heritage walk uh, in Delhi University, along with other organizations like Rahi and other, like even Sakshi is doing a great work in that sense. Because I do not have time now, and I'll try to conclude the thing in a few things. Uh, the question, why study history? Because we have talked about a lot on heritage. Let's talk why study history. It is a common misconception, and that studying history simply involves remembering people, events, key dates, and places. The who, what, when, and where types of question are just the start of it. And historians are far more interested in exploring the how and why questions. That is how you interpret an event to better understand how that unfolded and why that occurred. So, in a society that quite correctly expects education to serve useful purposes like getting money, the functions of history can seem more difficult to define than those of engineering or medicine, as I remarked earlier. But history helps us understand people. It helps us understand society, how change happened, and how the society we live in came to be. And museums, apart from monuments, play a big role in our understanding of the past. In the recent Central Vista project proposed by the government, the main issue arises is the moving of the National Museum from the place it is currently situated to the north and the south block as proposed in the plan. And we might discuss it later in another talk of how disastrous moving a museum is, when a lot of the artifacts remain unlisted. So what will happen to those artifacts, those precious items from the past? We really don't know. Something like this happened when the capital was shifted to Delhi from Calcutta, and when the National Museum was shifted to Delhi in 1950s or so. Many things were lost in transition, and we are afraid that something like this will happen with the National Museum as well. And that is why we have to start speaking to the stones, and that is why we have to start interacting with the heritage and history to save it from the ignorance of the government, of the people, and to preserve it for our future generations. This is a picture of our first exploration to Tughlakabad Fort with Sohail Hashmi, and that is another Guftagu program that we do that I can answer in the question answer session. As I end this talk, I am leaving you with some thoughts that annoyed me over these few years of me studying history, and there's a lot more which can't be justified in just 30 minutes of a conversation. And I hope young people like you will start speaking to the stones in the way we all must, to understand the soul of a monument, that how important role does a monument play in the contemporary society when we are struggling to know the definition. The very discipline of history is coming under attack. It is the young people like you all who will join us in this effort to fight ignorance, the lack of awareness, and misinformation that goes on social media. I'm available on various social media platforms, or alternatively, you can reach out to me via email. Uh, the last thing that I'll say is the value of history is in its dynamic flow of questioning the past and critically analyzing it, and not as a fixed idea in time and space. To open up, ask questions, and critically analyze the past. That's the necessity of the art. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Eshan. Believe me, it was really a pleasure listening to the Stone speak, really. And I'm sure the students or listeners, have might have got a lot to take from this topic. Now, we'll not waste any time. Let's move to the questions straightforward. So basically, we have multiple people asking question regarding that how we can conserve, these cultural heritage site, and if the upcoming digital advancement or the youth, do they have some special role to play in the conservation of cultural heritage site, Mr. Ishan?
Yes, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
please go ahead.
Social media is a revolution in its own right, and we cannot really misjudge the importance of social media. The misinformation of history starts from social media itself. So, to fight that misinformation, you have to start accepting social media as an alternative learning platform where there are young people working. We won't call our initiative in this, but there is a lot many. You can include our platform as well, but there are other platforms who are working really hard in tackling that misinformation that goes on. Like, if I can name some, there's En route Indian history, there's Mad Mughal memes, who are taken the medium of meme to understand and to explain history, which is a wonderful initiative. There's Itihasology, a student of third year student of St. Stephen's College is leading it. There's a student of I think that some South Campus college who is leading Memo Historia, which is also taking memes. So yeah, that's my answer. Social media is wonderful and it must be utilized properly.
Definitely, Mr. Ishan. Now let us move to another question. It is by Mandira Paul. She is asking that what is the definition of conservation according to you? Because today most of the so-called preserved sites are actually, under the constant attack of the environment and public. So what actually is the definition of conservation according to you?
Conservation, in short, conservation is to avoid beautification by the government. There is the soul of the monument lies in its original format, in its original form. Don't just beautify it for the sense because you want to make it more modernized. So, and conservation also includes the public participation. It doesn't only uh, get done by the government or the authorities. You have to participate yourself as a public.
Okay, Mr. Eshan. We'll take one last question. That is from Mr. Ajay Gupta. I too have a very similar question to Ajay. So basically, I'll rephrase it and ask. So, our history books, they are titled as Our Past. So, what do you think? What if we are actually reading our past? It is today we have various school of historians, the Cambridge School, the Marxist School, the National School of Historians. So, how to make sure, or that we are not reading something biased, and also, how you view this, the concept of rewriting of history, that is in the air today. So, your views regarding this, Mr. Ishan.
Follow what E.H. Carr said, the common sense school of history. History is all about interpretations, and one can interpret a single event in different ways, so it's up to them. But you must see the professional background of the person claiming it. Is he or she somebody who has dedicated their life in research? In the recent past, we have seen some very popular writer coming up writing history, which I think some of them are doing great, but some of them really are just making their own claims. About rewriting history, what who I think was one of the best teachers, Sunil Kumar, who passed away recently, said, "Nobody rewrites history, one writes history." So the whole thing of rewriting history doesn't really have anything to do with the public. It's just whoever is in power tries to rewrite history in their own ways. But if you want to rewrite, have someone at least who have professional degree in history. Don't just ask anybody to write history. That's the main cause of worry to history students.
Definitely, Mr. Eshan. Keeping in mind the time limit, I think I'll limit myself to these questions only. Over to you,
Saurabh,
Samir.
Saurabh,
Yeah.
one more question, one interesting question from January. If not picnic, then what are some other reasons or motives to visit a historical place? Just the heritage walk can limit the region to visit a place. So it's some
No,
sort of
do picnics. I didn't mean don't picnic. Getting there for picnic is a wonderful way to explore the stones. At least, and keep it clean. Whenever I visit the monument, I always see after doing picnic they just throw their garbage on the platform. They don't clean it up. That is my problem. हम भी पिकनिक पे जाते हैं लोधी गार्डन, हमें भी अच्छा लगता है. हम भी सुंदर नर्सरी जाते हैं संडेज को, और कभी आप संडे को आए तो गिव मी अ कॉल एंड वील मीट. But and other reasons and motives, for a public, for a person who is not from history background, just go for that curiosity of why or how something happened. And those are the only testaments of past that you have to interact with the past. That is the main reason, be it picnic, be it uh, wedding photography, or however way you want to.
Nice listening to you, Ishan. And naturally, you have just started your journey, that is Karwa. And the Karwa has to take many steps as such. It has to cover many miles because it is just the beginning of your Karwa. This is my observation, this is my feeling. And why? I must tell you that you have today raised many questions, and I am really happy with that. And I would like all the students present in this program, they should also try to inculcate this kind of values. That's very important because reading history or studying history, it is not the study of the dead past. It is the study of the dynamic past. And when we talk about dynamic past, then what you have pointed out, that is why. So this why is it's at the center of history. We'll have to remember this. Most of the time, what we do, even I think when in 1980, I took admission in Hindu College, Delhi University, and even at that time, why we went for history, it was for civil services. Everybody, history for civil services. So history maintained that continuity since 1980s to the present time. There is no doubt about that. So year cars, past and present, that continuity is still maintained in that form also. But when we talk about the monuments, which you today talked about, you highlighted many things, you raised several questions. And I do remember, like even in it was the year 1981, we also, at that time, our class used to have around 30 students, not more than that. So honors 30 students. So some teachers, they used to guide us. They did not accompany us, but they guided us. And at that time, Delhi was not very crowded. It was just 46 lakhs of population in Delhi. So they used to guide us, and then we, what was our first, that walk, heritage walk, that was Tughlakabad. That was in 1981. That was quite interesting. There was no doubt about that. And almost one full day that heritage walk took. And another important thing that these days, in place of heritage walk, one concept which is being highlighted, that is nature walk. So I think in this background, when we talk about heritage walk and nature walk, you can also do this thing, Ishan, that you should try to combine the two, heritage as well as nature walk. Because when you talk about conservation, so it is not the conservation of monuments, it is the conservation of monuments in totality. And that totality, like the monument and the surrounding, both have to be conserved for the final conservation of the monuments. So your heritage walk, naturally, it is also the that nature walk. Second important thing you talked about, that is bifurcation of like papers, which is being taught in Delhi University. For example, at some place we do have that is heritage, understanding heritage. On another place we do have art and architecture. At third level we do have museum and archives. Many papers are there. Now you have to remember one thing. In our times, we were devoid of all these things. Even in our times, we don't have any paper regarding environmental issues. But now the time has changed, and all these things came to be highlighted, whether it is environment, whether it is heritage. And that is why you do have papers, different papers. Sometimes I also feel that understanding heritage is there, then popular culture is there, and so many papers are there. There's one paper should have contained all of them. There should not be any compartmentalized in history. We also think of this thing, but sometimes, like when we make the syllabus or prepare the syllabus, then we face many kinds of challenges. And one very important thing for the success of your nature work, for the success of your that is heritage work, the interest has to be inculcated. As you have yourself observed that you invited the entire class, but nobody turned up. So that kind of interest has to be inculcated, and that is through different means. Then you also talked about that is the beautification of Jallianwala Bagh. Yes, we also share the same feeling in the sense that all the monuments, they should be conserved in their historical background. There should not be any kind of tampering. There should not be any kind of beautification. So that's a very important. And then also, presently, we do have the politicians who have emerged as the most important specialists on even this field. But now, since Delhi University, that's the most premier university, it has started courses, many courses on this. So I think, I do remember 1835 Macaulay's Minutes, and you do have that thing that after 15 years, we had almost a group of intellectuals, English medium, or like trained in English medium, that kind of intellectual. So even we are expecting the same thing, that after 10 to 15 years, we will have a number of student experts because skill enhancement course. So some sort of skill is being inculcated in all the students, present batch students, and I hope after few years we'll have very good result about that. Now, one thing which I want to say, because you have just raised many questions, and you have also started the karma, that journey, and as I have initially observed, that your karma has to cover many miles. Okay, so it is just at the beginning. And why? I do remember one book that is Let the Standing Stones Speak. Let the Standing Stones Speak. It was 2004 publication. Now, under this book, it was Standing Stones, that is in France. So the writer, a lady writer, she highlighted everything, like she highlighted that these standing monuments, they are speaking. They are speaking. They are not just mute spectators. They are not the mute speakers. Only those can understand them speak, the trained ones, which you also highlighted. We have to be trained in order to understand what they speak of. That's a very important thing. And then she highlighted, that is regarding these monuments, the stone monuments, they are as such at the center, they represent the center of the earth. They represent all kinds of energy. They represent cosmos also. Then another book, that was one 2012, another book also, it was, that is the Stones Speak. It was by Thorberger, two writers. I do remember Thorberger's name. And also it was from, that is from Poland area. So that the writer used to observe stones since childhood. And then the writer was able to associate his observations, and then almost he started talking to the stone. He tried to talk to the stone. He tried to open the door of the stone, but stone refused. No, no, no. You want to change, but I will not change. And there lies the importance of your presentation. That the persons, they don't like change. But you have to be the harbinger of the change. And change is steady, change is continuity, which you have highlighted from E.H. Carr. That's the correlationship. That's a very important thing. That is, there lies the importance of past and present. And one more thing, which I do remember, that is from your one, I'm just for, yes, it was from, that is Conversation with Stone. Another poem, beautiful poem, that is again from Poland. So Conversation with the Stone. So there are many good words on this, and you have started a karma. So I hope within some time, and as you get more matured, that's a very important. You have talked about Sunil Kumar regarding the rewriting of history. So now